people. This man has worked with many people who have talked about having these experiences. And again, very courageous guy to walk around a college campus in 2008 writing books about people being abducted by aliens. Of course, I might add that he is tenured. But the flip side, this is not a pseudonym. This is his real name. Please welcome Dr. David Jacobs.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you, Peter and Rob and Sue Swiatek, for inviting me and everybody else who connived to bring me here. What I'm going to do today is sort of give you the exact same lecture that Anna just gave, but different pictures. However, it'll be a little bit different. Just a little, not much, but a little bit different. And I'm doing this just to sort of bring you up to date on what the abduction phenomenon is, just to give you something to see. After I show you all this stuff, then I'll talk about what I'm actually here for, which is completely different. Let's see now, how do I do this? We're going to do, well, I got to go like this. And let's just hope that this will work. No, this is, am I in the DVD or am I in the pause? Or?
Did you put in a...
Yeah, it's in, but I pressed the DVD. Maybe I should just press an APC.
You stuck it in there now?
Yeah, and it's a DVD player. I've got a CD also, but I managed to leave the one I made for here. Let me take you through abduction stuff, very much like Anna did. I know that there's only an hour left of time for me here, but I'm going to stretch that into 3-4 hours, something like that. Yeah. As a professor, it is my prerogative to talk until the students just decide to get up and walk out. Basically, abduction events.
These are comfortable seats.
The comfortable seats make people fall asleep quicker. But what we're going to do is just take you through a sort of an abduction event that is leading towards the hybrid phenomenon. And that's what I'm going to talk about today primarily, is the hybrid phenomenon. Anna did a terrific job talking about aliens, and I'll show you some of the similarities. And these are I have not seen these pictures that Anna showed today. I've seen other pictures that she had, but the ones that she showed today I've not seen, and I'm really sort of amazed at how good and how close they are. They resemble these drawings that I've had for some years now. Usually it starts with an alien in the room. Now how they get into the room, they go through the window. That's a typical way. Come to the wall sometimes. The answer is that's not possible. And the only thing we can say is everybody says that knowing full well that it is not possible. And if they do say that, it's going to weaken the rest of their story because it sounds crazy, because it's just as easy that they could say, well, they knocked on the door and I opened it. So we just have to continue on as normal, essentially, with that. You'll notice that my talk is relatively bombastic. Can't help it. Let's see, I go to the next one here. People are taken on board an object, their clothes removed, they sit in a circular room. People say, and Anna used this word, gee, look at that person over there. That person looks like a zombie. And you know that person is looking at the one across and saying, gee, that person looks like a zombie. You know, you're sort of slack-jawed, walking around, stumbling, moving forward. That's extremely important, because if you weren't that way, you could run, you could swing, you could do whatever you wanted to do. That cannot be allowed in an abduction sequence. The person has to be rendered passive so the event will take place, and they are rendered passive wherever they are, whether it's a car or their home or outside or wherever it is. Otherwise, there would be no abduction phenomenon. The other aspect of it that allows for the abduction phenomenon to continue is that it must be clandestine, it must be secret. If you know that you are going to be abducted at all times, you might be able to take steps to prevent it, so that can't be allowed. So you have a phenomenon here almost immediately whereby there's a neurological manipulation and from a distance, and there is a clandestine operation that is enormously successful, regardless of the fact of UFO sightings, which, if you look at the phenomenon in light of UFO sightings, there should be no UFO sightings at all. Why are there UFO sightings? Then becomes a question that was never asked, has never been asked, not what is a UFO and what does it look like, but why are there sightings? And the answer, in my opinion, and this is not backed up by evidence, but in my opinion, is that it's the limits of their technology. They cannot remain clandestine, or let's just even say unseeable all the time, that there are points when they are seen. People are taken out, out of the room, they're placed on tables, there's a series of procedures, a lot of these are reproductive, and since I'm concentrating on hybrids here, everything is going to be reproductive. Sperm is taken, eggs are taken. You'll notice in this particular case here, oh, this has a yellow cast to it. I thought that was, man, I thought you were doing that for effect. Where am I here? What's this? There are staring procedures. You know, it's just being here is staring into a person's eye from a very close distance. I began to hear these reports. I stumbled on them back in 1987, and I didn't know what in the heck is this? Why are they staring into this person's eyes? I asked the person if they could move their eyes left or right, and the answer was no. I said, well, can you just close your eyes? You know, no. And I said, then I began to say, well, how close is he to you? And he says, well, his forehead is touching mine, thinking that they're being stared at from across a crowded room or something like that. And so you South Pacific fans. And, but for young people here, you won't understand that.
It's a good revival.
And there's a good revival of it on Broadway now, I know that, yeah. Then I stumbled on the right question, and the question was, what's going on in your mind while he's looking at you? And then you get these strange answers, like, oh, I really like him, and he's really a good person, and gee, I wonder if he likes me. And then followed by a certain sort of, now not with a guy, but with a woman, with a certain sort of sexual event here, attraction, not an event, but an attraction, a sexual sort of arousal, and all of which ultimately led to egg taking, a completely reproductive, there's nothing sexual going on here, a reproductive procedure. Plus there's a lot of other what I figured out eventually, at least my theory is, they're engaging with the optic nerve, which is the only nerve that can be seen from the outside, and when they do that, they can go through the optic nerve and innervate any other neurological sites within the brain, and cause people to feel things and see things and do things, all of which have been explained to me by way of just evidence. I'm seeing this, I'm seeing that, and I'm feeling something in the back of my head. I'm feeling something down my neck. The feeling now is sort of going down my spine. I'm feeling something. In other words, you can see them sort of going on and going through people's brains. How that is done, I do not know, because there is in fact a space between his eyes and the abductee's eyes. This is not like they've attached a wire or something. You know what I mean? That part we don't understand and do not know. I'm doing this fast so I can. Egg taking goes on here. Anna talked about having fetuses taken from her. Fetuses are injected, inserted rather into the woman's uterus. Usually, not always. We have discovered other places as well, and then after about 8 to 10 weeks are taken out. Now these experiences, sperm, egg, fetus insertion, fetus removal, happen to all abductees just about, kind of, maybe. When you use the word all, you're never right. It's an automatic wrong. But it's a primary procedure, and when you work with abductees long enough, they will in fact describe these procedures. And I've got hundreds and hundreds of them. Now, I haven't worked with that many abductees. I've only worked with between 150, 160, but I worked with some of them for 20 years. And I'm in for the long haul with most of them. The fact is, however, that this is a reproductively oriented phenomenon. It is not a phenomenon that is here to examine Earth's geology. Maybe they do that too, okay, but in terms of humans, this is and always has been a reproductively oriented phenomenon. And from the first cases that we got, for you UFO buffs here in the audience, the Antonio Villas-Boas case in 1957 in Brazil, to the 1961 Barney and Betty Hill case, they all displayed a reproductive component and continue to do so, obviously, to this day. Okay, next. Fetus is removed. This is a small gray alien taking a fetus away. People are taken into, and then once again, these are mirroring what Anna said. You'll notice, incidentally, this is just a minor detail, but this is an extremely important detail. You see the table? This is the kind of tables that Anna had. Yeah. I used to ask people, this would be a direct but misleading question to see if they'll bite. And in fact, I will show you a case where a woman does bite, but for various other reasons. I say, well, if it's a table, you can see the four legs, can't you? Obviously, that's a direct, it's in hypnosis, direct misleading question. And I'll say, well, no, I don't see any. It just sort of comes out of the floor, This is one person here. All these drawings are done by abductees, of course. Here's another person. You'll notice the doorways here, they're circular. You notice there's not a whole lot of pictures on the walls and things like that. And takes it away. Here's another one. This is a completely different woman. This is a woman who I worked with for a very long time. This is not the same person who drew the other drawings you just saw. In other words, and those were actually done by 2 or 3 other people as well. This is basically fetuses in containers. The people are brought in to view these things. Why this happens, we do not know. It is extremely common. Sometimes they're in cylinders that come out of the floor. I think I might have one of those. There we go. In various stages of development. So the doorway is a different person, of course. And is there another one there? No. Then people see babies, tiny little babies that Anna pointed out. This is actually somebody sent this to me. I've never worked with this person. I talked with him. I asked him, got his permission to use the drawing. This looks like one of Anna's drawings. It is not. This is a totally different person. Once again, holding a baby. This is a caretaker who I call. Everybody has a different name for them, perhaps. This is a hybrid caretaker, and what you should notice here is the garb. This is what I call hybrid garb. With Anna's, it had sort of a little neckline thing, but this is what, back in the days of my youth, last week, I used to think that, well, if you're going to make a hybrid, how do you do that? And I'd say, well, you take your basic sperm, you take your basic egg, you put them together, and then you add alien DNA, if there is such a thing as alien DNA, and of course we do not know. Or you alter that zygote, that gamete, whatever it is, in such a way that you're going to get a bell-shaped curve. Some are going to look quite alien, most are going to look in the middle, and some are going to look sort of human. You know what I mean? That turned out to be true, if any of this is in fact true. But if you buy into my world, that turned out to be true, but incomplete. And what I have learned is, and there are various ways of doing this, is yes, that happens, but then you take your basic sperm, your basic egg, you put them together, and you take DNA from the hybrid, not from an alien. You stick it in there. Then you get a bell-shaped curve that is skewed more towards looking more human, less alien, still most in the middle. And then you do that from that particular hybrid again. Then you get one where there's a lot human and very few who look sort of alien, and then in the middle is, in other words, you're making the right-hand tail where it looks more human, longer and wider. And you just keep doing that. You just keep doing that. And so I divided them up into early stage that really look alien. This would be human, early stage. This would be early stage. These do not, I mean, these look alien. And then you middle stage and late stage. I have another stage now that I have to add, which we'll talk about at the end. Okay. But this is a baby presentation where a person, a woman, or a man has to hold a baby. Oftentimes a woman has to, as Anna just sort of passed through, she said, nursing the baby. And I remember once my colleague Bud Hopkins called me up back in 1983 or 82, and maybe 83. I didn't even start doing abduction research on my own until 86, doing my own hypnosis. And he said, David, I got the most amazing story, the most amazing story I've heard, the most amazing story. This woman was brought into the room and they brought a baby, and they had her hold the baby and to her breast. I said, well, okay. Then they had her put the baby to the breast and feed the baby. I said, what do you mean, feed the baby? That's a sentence that doesn't make any sense. How can you feed the baby? She's never married, she's not pregnant, and she's not lactating. Therefore, you cannot, there's got to be certain things that happen before you can feed the baby, you know. And he said, no, they forced her to put the baby up to her breast and feed the baby anyway. And sort of, there was this suckling and all that. And I said, God, that's the most, what this is a wall between us and them. If this is happening, as Bud had been looking at, Bud Hopkins, then maybe we will never be able to understand the alien thought, if the aliens exist. Once again, all these, I won't say that anymore. You just have to assume that that's in front of every sentence, right? We will never be able to understand because they value form over function. The form is you put the baby to the breast. The function is there's no milk. So it doesn't matter to them what the function is, it's the form. And the answer to that is, yeah. We figured out the procedure that they use to cause lactation, and women are already lactating whether they know it or not, and the baby does in fact feed. Simple as that. One of the things that we've learned about this subject is that everything makes sense, everything is logical, everything is rational. Everything that we used to think was incomprehensibly bizarre just meant we were ignorant. We just did not know. We were ignorant of the data. Now, and we've learned so much about it now that we know that everything is done for a reason. Here's a baby that has to be held. You'll notice it has very wispy hair here. It has very dark eyes, but there's a little bit of white in the eyes. Hard to tell, but there's a little bit of white. This is an early stage hybrid. Here's another one. She put no whites in here, slightly older. This is actually, you can't tell, but this is actually hair. You see it? That's hair, very wispy. Also early stage. This is one of my favorites. This was sent to me anonymously from a woman, I think, in Las Vegas. And this is I like to show this. If you've seen this before, sorry about that, but I like to show this for. Actually, I've got the cursor I could use, but this is what's called a really accurate representation of a hybrid child that's completely inaccurate. Wispy hair, very large eyes. There's whites in the eyes, very thin mouth, little tiny nose, pointed chin, hybrid garb. But the head is as big as the body. That's the problem. that can't be. That's where the confabulation comes in. She's conflating. It's a memory, and when people tend to remember these things straight out without help of a competent researcher and hypnotist, they tend to get things wrong. They don't mean to, of course, but they tend to overemphasize things, or their dream material gets in, or all sorts of other material gets in, and it's very difficult to sort it all out. Here are children playing with a flat object. These are kids wearing their hybrid garb. Here you see that, and here's a hallway again. And these would be probably middle stage. I don't see, they have very thin, maybe even late stage. This is the abductee. She's been given this thing, and it's got lights on it. You're supposed to make the lights to change patterns with your mind, as Anna described in a different context. And here is a sort of late stage caretaker. Here is just a straight alien. Here is kids playing with, these are hybrid children playing with rag dolls. But see how thin these dolls are? And here is the abductee with a regular doll that she had as her own toy, she came up with, as I believe. But they're playing, they have these sort of doll-like figures that they've been given. Just keep this in the back of your mind. Now, here is one where these are pictures, here's the rag doll, here's a regular doll. They gave her some sort of thing, maybe to change lights on, something to do. It was a toy, but she had to manipulate it with her mind, and she didn't quite understand it. And she grabbed it, and like when Anna said, "What do you do with a box?" Somebody said, "Shake it." That's what she did. She started to shake it. And they said, "No, no, 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 don't do that." And you can see the expressions on their face. No, no, no. Here is a staring procedure by a child wearing a hybrid garb. You'll notice this is the abductee here who drew this. He actually is a graphic artist, so he could do some very, very nice drawings. Here is a screen-like device. Here's him. Here's another abductee on a bench with little kids wearing their garb, and here's he says nurse. He's not sure who this is here, but here he is, surrounded by kids. Big screen there to look at things. Here is a woman who was given this garb to wear, and she looks at a screen, and on the screen here's like a control panel. Basically what she was supposed to do was, the setup was at the top, there is an alien being chased by humans. She is to operate the UFO where he will be able to run under, and she can sort of grab him and pull him up and save him. And she said, "Well, I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to operate that." But when she got over to the board, she realized, oh, I do know how to. Oh yeah, I can do this. Yeah. And she starts maneuvering with whatever they had there, and the alien runs underneath, and the humans don't get him, and then they say, "Okay, that's good enough. That's fine. You did well. You did well. You did well." And all that. Here is a picture of a late stage, or what I would call human stage now, a human stage hybrid. Now this is done by one person, and he's wearing glasses of all the damn things in the world. And here's another picture by another person of a guy wearing glasses and all. This is Bud Hopkins people right here. This one, the other one was. This one isn't. Anna is. Where is Anna? Is this yours?
No.
This is another person altogether.
That's the Emily.
This is Emily. Oh, did you show this?
No.
Oh, you didn't? Okay. Because I know that. And then there's this one here. This is these are hybrids who are wearing military garb, and I've had a hybrid, a human stage hybrid who wore a camouflage uniform on in a different context that he'd picked up this camo uniform, this kind of stuff has given rise among many abductees to the idea that the American government is in fact abducting people, and they have proof because they're wearing these uniforms and all that. And the answer is, if the American government could abduct people, there would be no such person named Ahmadinejad. There would be no such person as Saddam Hussein from a long time ago. The world would be really different if we could go right through windows and take people out and nobody would know it. We would live in a different world than the one we live in if the American government could do that. Now, I'm coming to the end of this. Maybe this is the last one, and I'm about to show you a picture, the best picture I have of a hybrid I've had so far. And this is, in fact, a woman lying on a table. The table is sort of bent up. And here is a sort of like I would call it a middle stage hybrid, pointing at this thing. What this is a map of streets. It's a street map. And her job in the future, she was told, will be, there'll be crowds of people in the street. You stand there and you say, go this way, just keep going this way, don't worry, everything is okay, just move this way, keep moving this way. I have a lot of these sort of accounts. This is not unusual. This is not unusual. Crowd control. Panicky people being controlled by abductees. And last picture, it's sort of a weird picture this picture was given to me secretly of a person who was a fairly dull-looking hybrid. And very strange, trying to understand what a bowl is. Well, now I'm going to get to what I wanted to talk about. That was for pure entertainment purposes. The question is, what does this all mean? Okay, well, you can have these events, and they are interesting and all the rest of that stuff. And the word experiment was used before that, well, they've come down from the planet Vortek or wherever they're from, and it might interest you to know that not knowing where they're from is critical. Knowing where they're from means nothing. Not knowing where they're from is critical to the veracity of this entire event, because if this were invented, it would have to be psychologically based. That's a 100% chance of it being. You're making it up for whatever reason. Maybe you've got a tumor the size of a watermelon in your brain. Maybe that's causing it. Maybe it's just because of societal stress. The election's coming. I'm going to see flying saucers and hybrids, like sociologists used to say years ago, of which there's no evidence for whatsoever. Or you're making it up because you were sexually abused by a grandfather, and there's no evidence for that whatsoever. But it's all psychological anyway. When we take a look at psychological stories about aliens, well, basically you look at two people. You look at two things, Hollywood and contactees of the 1950s. These were characters who met space aliens from Venus, who took rides on flying saucers. That was the big thing in the 1950s. They gave me a ride on a flying saucer. And as if hey, I got a new motorcycle, want to take a ride on it, and gave them a tour, like they'd be interested in all that sort of stuff. And the very first things that the aliens said to the contactees, or to Hollywood, or in Hollywood movies representing aliens, is, my name is Thor, and I come from the planet Vortek, and we come in peace. Or, my name is Thor, and I come to the planet Vortek, and we come because now you fill in the blank. Exploding too many atomic bombs, you're ruining the alignment of the planets, whatever it is at the time. But they had a name, they had a place, they had a reason. With the abduction phenomenon, we don't have a name, we don't have a place, and nobody can figure out the reason. That's why it's critical. Because we would be getting that in the thousands of accounts that we have had. We would be getting that, okay, let's just say half the time and be stupid about it. We would be getting it most of the time, actually. But to be conservative, we'd be getting a significant number of these kinds of accounts, all of which are pure science fiction and internally generated. But we don't. We don't know where they're from, period. Now, I'm going to save time by telling you why that is, why the case might be that we don't know where they're from. I'll skip that part of the lecture if you want. But I teach a course on this subject. I talk for 4.5 months about it, so you have to wrestle me to the ground to get me to stop talking. But the fact is that we don't know, for years we didn't know why, and people thought, whoa, it's an experiment. They're experimenting on us. They find a couple people, Barney and Betty Hill, 1961, is a famous case from New Hampshire and all the rest of that stuff, made into a terrific 1975 NBC movie called The UFO Incident. And you examine them. You take their clothes off, say, what's this, what's that, hey, yeah, some of you might just pull their legs off, look inside, what's in there, and it's an experiment. It's a learning situation there. And everybody who paid any attention to abductions, and that was a very small group of people in the beginning, everybody up until the present day assumes, well, it's an experimental model. They don't assume it. They say their assumptions are within the experimental model. Let's put it that way. They're finding out about us. They're learning about us. There was no evidence for that whatsoever. That was the model that I held for years. Even in Secret Life, I sort of wrote that as the model. They're learning about us. The evidence would not hold. Couldn't sustain it. Just did not. The more I looked at it, the more I realized I got to revise that. That was wrong. What this appears to be is a global, just like the UFO phenomenon, it matches the UFO phenomenon exactly, a global phenomenon that is clandestine. Flying saucers do not land on the White House lawn. People come out and say, take me to your leader. It doesn't happen. A phenomenon that is a program. As a program, it has a beginning, a middle, and an end, and it is goal-directed. They are doing this for a reason. Now, I have another hour lecture, if you want, about what you're looking at when you see a UFO, and you're not looking at a UFO. You're looking at part of a program that has a background to it. There had to have been, for example, I'll cut this into just a few minutes, there had to have been somebody or some committee or some group or some king or some emperor of the universe or whoever it was who said, let's do it. There had to be a person who gave the orders, okay, they'll fit, do it there. Unless they all voted democratically to do it, I don't think that's going to happen. There had to be research and development. They had to go down and research us. Maybe they did pull people's legs off at one time to make sure that we were okay to do this. They're not after lizards and snakes, you know what I mean? They're after us, essentially. And then there had to be design of the objects, of the UFOs. They had to make those tables human size. They're not 4 feet long for the little guys or for the taller ones on board. They had to make those round entrances large enough to fit a 6'6" person through and all that. They had to make instruments that are built for humans and not for, let's just say, salmon. They had to do this. This sort of had to happen. There has to be some sort of support. There's got to be a logistics. There's got to be coordination. When you see a UFO, you're looking at a whole world that has to exist if there are UFOs and the abduction phenomenon is going on. In other words, and this is a global phenomenon. The abductions have nothing to do with the United States. This is a global phenomenon. What I'm saying here is that this program to these beings is tremendously important. And they have figured it out extremely well. Well, if this is a program with a beginning, middle, end, and it's goal-directed, they're doing it for a reason. What is that reason? Well, I began to hear reports some years ago of people being taken into a room, and there was that screen-like device, and they'll walk into a room, and their attention is directed to the screen. And there's a couple of these in the threat that I wrote there. That's not my title, incidentally. It was Simon & Schuster's title. And I always have to say that. And the title embarrassed me so much for so many years. And I'm finally getting used to it. But anyway, where was I? What was I saying? That's the problem. When you have no notes, that's the problem. Well, the point is that they're looking at the screen. Thank you. They're looking at the screen, and there is a picnic. A normal, average, everyday, run-of-the-mill picnic. It's in a park. There's a grill. There's a table. You know, people talking. They're playing ball. Whatever. A scene of normal, everyday life. And the person looks at that, and they hear in their mind's ear, because all communication is telepathic. And if this were psychological, that would not be true. We would have at least half, if not more, maybe 90% of them say, you know, they speak English, but what a weird accent, you know, or something like that. But in fact, in terms of hypnosis and all that, it's all telepathic. And they'll hear in their mind, can you tell the difference between us and you? And the person will look up at the screen and say, huh? What do you mean? Everybody's exactly the same. Well, look, everybody looks the same to me. And they'll say, see? Isn't that wonderful? Isn't that great? Soon we will all be together. Soon we will be with you. It will be wonderful. You will love it. You know, you're just going to love it a lot. Soon we'll all be together. Well, when you hear that once, it just goes in the back burner because it's got to be verified by others. Maybe the person's making it up. And believe me, there are a lot of people out there, I hate to say this, I don't want to let the cat out of the bag, who are completely crazy. And they find me every once in a while. But then I began to hear more of these, and person taken into the room looks at a screen, and there's like a picture of, it's like 12 people, but they're lined up like a school shot, you know, like on steps. There's people in the back who are taller than people in the front and all that. And same thing, can you pick us out of this picture? No, you know, and they say, well, isn't that wonderful? Soon we will all be together. Soon it's going to be wonderful. I began to hear these kinds of stories, and then I began to think about, what does soon mean? What do you mean by soon? In cosmic time, is soon like 1,000,000 years? Would that be soon, in the soon range? Or is it like tomorrow, you know? And nobody knew. They didn't know. No, they're not telling. There is no, I don't know, you know. So somebody said, oh, maybe within the next 30 years. And I figured I glommed onto it. I figured, well, I put that in the thread. The one abductee suggested it might be within the next 30 years. I was right. They were right. It was within the next 30 years. And the reason I'm here today is to say it's now. Starting in 2003, I began to hear reports that I had never heard before. And believe me, well, I don't know, I haven't done that many. I've done maybe 1,000 sessions, and there are people who claim to have done more and all the rest of that stuff. But mine are very, very long, and of course I don't charge any money, so it's an all-day event with me, and I stick with people very closely. And I hear things that are the same over and over and over and over again. This is my dirty little secret. Literally, I'm sitting in they're on a sort of day bed. I'm on a chair. There's a table with 3 professional tape recorders going, because I've learned that if I have 2, I'll screw it up. If I have 1, I've already screwed it up. 3, I have to work at screwing it up, and I found ways to do it. to not tape them. But I know that I've heard these things over and over again. I start to think about what they're saying, and I'm thinking, and I'm thinking, and I'm thinking. I'm thinking really hard about what they're saying. Then I realize I'm dreaming, literally. Yes, I see. Oh, okay. I literally have fallen asleep. I've heard it so many times. I can't keep my eyes open. Starting in 2003, I started to hear something completely different. Now, when you hear something different, put it on the back burner, you wait for other people to say it. Then I started to hear other people say it. People I worked with for years started to say it. And it all had to do with helping hybrids integrate into the society, one way or the other. Now, there's a certain route here. It's not just that way. What I've learned is that the integration program, as I posited in the threat, is upon us, but not in a way that I thought. I thought, well, everybody wake up one day and they'd be here, and that'd be the end of that. You know, be a shock to the system, and then you get on with your lives. But it turns out it is far more complicated than I thought, as is everything, because I have a tendency to just think simply. But everything is more complicated. So what I've been studying in the past 5 years is not only the integration program and the procedures for integration and abductees' roles in the integration program, but the bureaucracy of the integration program as well. In other words, how is it done from on high? What do the gray aliens have to do with this, and what do hybrids have to do with this, and who in fact is integrating into the society, and what is the role of the abductees, and how are the abductees controlled, etc., etc. And there's a whole world that has opened up now of integrating people into the society. And it starts with basically human stage hybrids on board the object. These are people, male and female, who just look like us. There's no difference. They don't have bigger eyes, they don't have pointy chins, they don't have anything like that. They're just average Joe Sixpacks. Use a current phrase. Or Joe the Plumbers, right. Average plumbers.
Vice presidential candidate?
My grandfather was a plumber. I have nothing against plumbers. And
Even with lipstick?
even with lipstick. So the fact is, though, that it's not like, there's one over there, I can see one right there. It's not like that. If you know who they are, if you can see one, the program has failed. And what you get is people on board the object, abductees, whose job is to pass judgment on hybrids. Can they, in fact, pass as human or not? In other words, are they wearing the right clothes? Now, I for example, there's only 2 of us in this room who happen to be wearing a tie. You and I. And in fact, this is my teaching and lecturing costume. Is it? So I would not be appropriately clothed for this event, let's put it that way. Or at least nobody here is appropriately clothed except the 2 of us, let's put it that way. But there's a group of abductees around, and these people are paraded in front of them. They're young. They're like 17, 18, 19, 20, college age, up to about 24 or so. And one will look and say, no, they don't wear those shoes anymore, those wingback shoes or wingtip shoes or whatever, you know. It's like they got their clothes out of a thrift shop or something, but they got wingtip shoes, whatever it is. No, they don't wear those anymore. And this jacket is so weird. You're going to stand out. And that's what they want to hear, because they want to blend in totally and completely. So you get case after case of a woman or a guy talking about how they have to pass judgment before anything happens on these hybrids so that they look normal. So once again, if you think you see somebody who looks like a hybrid, it's automatically not true by definition. This is, and I was on Coast to Coast the other night. I've been on that show a million times. I got like 100 emails almost immediately, and a whole bunch of them had to do with their roommates or their friends who are hybrids or the people or their hybrids. So the point is that that's not the way it works. They got that one covered. That one, that's the first thing they think of is how not to look like a hybrid. That's rule number one. Now, once they're down, let's just say, okay, this group is good to go, and they place them down, then you have a whole series of other things that sort of fall into place. You have at the top, and now I'm saying this off the top of my head from information let me give you a strong caveat, a caveat here. This is anecdotal information, that is to say, information derived from human memory. And believe me, as you can tell just from my talk, my memory is gone. I have no memory. And what I do remember is wrong. So it's human memory derived from hypnosis, for which everybody knows is automatically wrong. Everything that ever comes out of hypnosis is wrong. Everybody knows that. Administered by amateurs. It's not hard to imagine that this is not strong evidence. Yet, it is evidence. It is evidence. It's anecdotal evidence. And everybody knows that. And there's a physicality to it too, as Anna pointed out. When you're on an abduction event, you're physically missing from your normal environment. And it usually does fit the time in which people don't remember a lot, but it's usually 2-3 hours, and sometimes 5 days, 6, even longer sometimes. But they're still not. But people those are extraordinary cases. We're looking at once again a tail of a bell-shaped curve that extends out, but we don't normally see. Most of them are exactly 2, 3, 4 hours, whatever it is, and they're physically missing. People have looked for them. People have called the police. They're missing children. All that sort of stuff. They come back with clothes on backwards, wearing somebody else's clothes. How would you like to wake up in the morning and you're wearing somebody else's clothes, and it's not like you were in a drunken party the night before and you can kind of figure it out, you know what I mean. That happens once in a while. It's just a mistake actually in handing back clothes when people get dressed. And people have scars on their bodies and all. There's a certain physicality to it. But the core evidence is the story, is the anecdote. So you all have to sort of take this for what it's worth. And critical thinking obviously is involved in all this. So what you have here then is gray aliens who are directing this situation. They are the ones who have set it into place. There are some aliens who are basically in control, and this is what I think, of a geographic region. Maybe it's not very large. Maybe it's the size of a small city. Maybe it's maybe it's a county or something like that. They don't know what cities are, they don't know what counties are. That's all political stuff. They don't know anything about that. But it might be some geographic region. Below them are those people being aliens who service the abductees in what they're going to be doing. These are all still gray aliens. Below them are hybrids whose function is to integrate others into the society. One is a security function. There are security function people who have, these are beings who are human stage well within the 98th percentile. Well, let's put it 95th percentile. They're not, they live, we think they live here, but the point is, they are to protect the ones who are moving in. That is and protection means keeping all knowledge of their existence a secret. Making sure that violence does not befall them. For example, they might be out in a park one night and be mugged or something. This is something that cannot happen. This is something that will not happen. This is a security component. In the thread, I wrote about abductees who have what I call who have personal project hybrids. That is to say, hybrids who stay with them from the time they're children all the way into middle age or whatever and grow old with them. Well, it turns out they have a purpose as well in this particular event. The purpose is to be with the abductees and squire them to the proper places where they will be helping people integrate. Then other, what I call independent hybrids, hybrids who are living here already, how they got here I don't know, of course, but are also involved with this, who also help in the integration and who also help squire the abductees. They're sort of, they intermix their roles, but the hybrid who has been introduced to them, who they give a name to, also uses the abductee as a learning instrument. They are learning about relationships, they're learning about all sorts of things in society, they're learning how to drive. How's that for something bizarre? They're learning how to be human, how to live here. When asked, well, if you're doing that, what about the whole history? We have a whole history, we have a civilization, whole history. The answer is, well, your history will be my history. And of course the answer is, well, yeah, that's the way it is with all immigrants on one way or another, eventually. And so the question then is, how do you move in? Well, first you have to get a place to stay. I mean, this is mundane stuff. This is just this is stuff that is just so basic. It's almost hard to imagine how basic this material is. Well, they get an apartment. Paying the rent is signing things. That has to be done too. I don't know how that is done. I've not learned that. They move in pairs and usually, more often I've seen, in threes, trios. Now, what do you do if you're moving into an unfurnished apartment? You gotta buy furniture. The reason you have to buy furniture is so that everything looks normal. It's not just like you're going to use it, and there's not even a guarantee they're going to be living there 100% of the time. Maybe they're going back every night. We don't know that. But it's got to look normal. So you have to get furniture. Now there are ways to do this. You can go to Walmart and buy furniture with the help of an abductee who can show you what to get and how to get it. Then there is, now here's an actual case that I'll point to, going into an apartment that a woman has never been into, and she is required to look around this apartment, make sure everything looks okay. Well, the first thing she notices is that it's like a living room, dining room situation with a kitchen in the back, and off to the side there's a bedroom and so forth. And all the furniture is sort of in a corner of the room, and the whole rest of the room is empty. Yeah. She says, you can't do that. You have to have the couch, you have to bring the couch out here. And it's the same thing with telepathy. Telepathy is not a normal part of the human condition. It just isn't. You'll just have to believe me. Everybody thinks they have telepathic abilities. The answer is, no, you don't. It just does. Because if you did, the world would be different. We wouldn't live in this world. We live in a totally different society. Completely. Just a small segment of the population, maybe 1%, have telepathic powers. We just wouldn't live in the same world. It would just be impossible. There would be a group of people who could be able to tell what you were thinking. They'd rule the world. or whatever they do. It'd be a whole different universe for us, so to speak. But these beings can do that. Even the ones who are 17 years old, they can do that. And that makes us second-class citizens. That makes them first-class citizens. That means that one of the oddities that we saw from beginning to end was they never, ever asked anybody any questions about politics, structures, the name of the country that they live in, for example. The phrase United States of America doesn't mean anything to them. There's no interest in institutions or politics or any structure of life that we have. And we always thought, well, wait a minute, in the movies, they are always interested in this. You know, they do ask questions. And if this were psychological, we would get questions about Sarah Palin or Joe Biden, whoever, whatever. There would be what is an election anyway? You know, you'd think they'd catch on something's happening here. Couldn't care less. And my sense is you couldn't care less because they will control the structure eventually. Their structure will be operative, not ours.